The clock on the dashboard of my old truck shows 1 in the morning. The sun has long since set, leaving darkness covering the road. The famous haunted teak forest stretches on both sides of the road. Usually, I always avoid this route after dusk, but at night, I was pressed when the boss asked me to send goods to the next town before dawn, and this shortcut could save travel time by up to 2 hours. Thick fog began to fall, reducing my visibility to only a few meters. The night air felt damp and cold, piercing to my bones. The smell of rancid smoke came from the hut. I started to start, but suddenly the engine of my truck started coughing and finally died completely. I cursed and hit the steering wheel in annoyance. Damn, I was frustrated. I tried to start the engine again, but it didn't work. The silence of the forest became increasingly tense. Only the sound of crickets and the rustling of leaves could be heard. I reached for the flashlight in the glove compartment. Then I got out of the truck. The thick cab made me feel bad. I looked around. I walked along the road hoping to find a sign. After walking around 100, I started a small trail that disappeared into the forest. There was a sign that said Kampung Hutani on the side of the road. Overcoming my fear, I decided to follow the trail in hope. Found help in a village hidden in the forest. The path became narrower and more winding. Large trees towered over the night sky. The light of my flashlight was only able to penetrate a few meters ahead. Strange sounds began to be heard from inside the forest. Roars of animals, rustling of leaves and whispers. A faint whisper that gave me goosebumps. After walking for about half an hour, I saw the light of an oil lamp flickering in the distance. I tightened my steps hoping to find a resident's house. Getting closer, I saw a small building in Yangon. In my Angung house, the village was very quiet. There were no signs of life at all. I cleaned up. I approached one of the houses. The door of the house was ajar. I peeked inside but didn't see anyone. I called out, but there was no answer. I pushed the door of the house wider and went into the house. It was very simple. There was only a small wooden worktable and a the smell of incense in the kitchen utensils really hit my nose. In the corner of the room, I saw the figure of an old grandmother sitting in a rocking chair. The grandmother was wearing a black kabaya and shabby batik cloth. Her hair was long and white, covering part of her face. "Excuse me, Grandma." I greeted her politely and didn't answer. She just looked at me with a blank stare. I repeating my greeting. The grandmother remained silent. I started to feel uncomfortable. I decided to leave the house. When I was talking, the grandmother suddenly started to think. She walked slowly towards me. I thought that the wrinkles were getting clearer. Her sunken eyes looked at me sharply. I felt a cold air. Bone-piercing, "Help me. I'm lost. My truck is stuck in the middle of the forest," I said in a trembling voice. The grandmother didn't answer. She just kept approaching me and gave me a house without looking back. I didn't know where to go. I just wanted to get away from the village as quickly as possible. I kept running until my legs felt weak. I stopped for a moment to catch my breath. The forest around me looked increasingly dark, and scary, strange sounds became clearer. I could hear it. I felt like I was being watched by something. I continued my journey following the footpath, which was becoming increasingly unclear. I didn't know how long I had been walking. I felt like I was going round and round in the same place. The thick fog was getting thicker, as if I was about to find life. I heard the sound. A feet on my back. I heard it. My cuckoo was pounding fast. Suddenly, I tripped over a tree root and fell. My flashlight was thrown and it died. I fumbled. The ground struggled to find its way in when I saw the cold, slimy Tangami holding my hand. A large black snake coiled beside me. The snake hissed. Its bright red eyes stared at me hungrily. I got up and backed away slowly, trying not to make a sound. The snake followed me. I gave as hard as I could, but the snake was getting closer. I screamed. Toru H was called me. I didn't know what else to do. Suddenly, I saw a wooden stilt house in front of me. I ran towards the house and banged on the door. Loudly, please, please open the door. My door is open. Slowly, a young woman stood in front of him. Come in, she said in a hoarse voice. I'm not sure if I see that snake. I don't have a choice. I'm going into that house. In that house. Girl, I don't think so, but the one keeps getting close to me. I'm looking at the wall, tang and wow. I'm sorry. In that house sounds like I tried to face the door, but the door was locked. I knocked on the door, but there was no answer. I started pee. I went to the window, and the window was also locked, but there was no one. I sat on the floor. My head felt heavy. I felt very tired. I closed my eyes again, hoping to wake up from this nightmare. When I tried to open my eyes, I saw the woman standing in front of me. She smiled at me. Welcome to my house, she said. I got up and took a step back. It kept coming closer. I was cornered against the wall again. Don't be afraid, the woman said. I won't hurt you. Who are you? Asked me. I am the village guard, this woman said. I have been waiting for you for a long time. Why are you waiting for me? Because you are perfect, the woman said again. The woman stretched out her hand and touched my face again. I closed my eyes, resigned to my fate. When I opened my eyes, I was in the middle of the forest. I saw me parked on the side of the road. I ran towards my truck and got in. I turned on the engine, then drove off, maybe not looking back. I just wanted to get away from the village as quickly as possible. I kept going until the sun came up. I stopped at a food stall for breakfast. I told the owner of the terrible experience I had to the owner of the stall. The owner of the stall just smiled and shook his head. I know that I will never forget that terrible experience. I swear I will never again. Jalan Pike Jati Forest. I watered the truck with Jalasa and Paro Minder Sepka's temple. Bread and bottles of water from TR were sitting on the edge while he was eating. A PRA with a straw hat approached Ross Dyer Seenum and introduced him as an AKC's security guard for Yangdeking. PJ's fateful forest village is known to be haunted. Sun said Pak Amen. Many people got lost and never came back. Actually, what happened in that village, Mr. Tanya? I'm curious. It's said that the village is inhabited by curious spirits who can't calm down. Pakamet said, they are looking for a sacrifice to replace them in this world. I said, take care of yourself, son. Pakamet said, don't ever go back to the forest. I nodded and said thank you once again to Sir. I continued my journey with I ended up singing Orana and milking the lag. Jay Yang. I then remembered that night in the village in the forest. I parked the truck on the side of the road. Feeling tired and hungry, I started to feel bad. I took a pack of cigarettes from the dashboard and lit one. The billowing smoke mingled with the morning mist that was starting to thin. I massaged my temples, trying to calm myself down, but the image of the old grandmother and the red-eyed woman continued to haunt me after I had finished. I decided to continue my journey. I couldn't stay here for long. The goods in the truck had to reach their destination quickly. I started the engine and drove at medium speed. I tried to ignore the uncomfortable feeling that continued to haunt me. Several hours later, I was in the next town. I delivered the goods to the address. The destination, then looked for a place to rest. I rented a room in a cheap hotel, then took a shower and went to sleep. I slept soundly like someone who hadn't slept for a long time. The next day, I woke up feeling refreshed. I had breakfast at a food stall near the hotel, then go to the aqueduct. You were safe. After that, I started my journey home. I deliberately avoided shortcuts through the teak forest. I chose a longer but safer route. I didn't want to experience a terrible incident like last night again. When crossing the toll road, I saw a Patry police car stopped on my road. Many and asked the police that there was an accident last night. The police said that a truck hit a tree in the Jatier forest. He died on the spot. I was shocked. I remember the incident that night. The Munka Suk that died. I thought I was actually dead. A quaking confusing AK returned to the truck and continued trip. I don't know what really happened last night. That's clear. I'm talking about the crash of the truck in Han Jadiak that Wahyu. He's saying that feels sorry for him. I'm thinking about the terrible incident that I experienced. I don't know what it is, just a dream or reality. but I'm sure there is something evil in the teak forest. A few weeks later, I got a call from the police. They found my truck abandoned in the teak forest. The truck was badly damaged, like it had hit a tree. The police said there was no sign of the wreck. I was speechless. I can't say a word. I remember the conversation with the police on the toll road a few days ago. Is it possible that Supatuk, who died, is actually me? Is it possible that I am actually dead, and the one who is now alive is only my spirit that is left in this world? I answer the phone. My mind is confused. I see my reflection in the mirror. My face is pale when my eyes were sunken. I no longer recognize myself. I walked to the window and looked out the sky. As it started to rain, I felt like I was being caught in an endless nightmare. I didn't know what to do. I could only be angry with my fate. I hope one day I can find a way out of this nightmare, and hopefully I can go back to the world Nada, to the place where I belong. I woke up with sweat stinging me all over my body, not pointing. My heart is fast. I feel I'm in the safety of my house, but the fear and anxiety don't go away like that. I can still feel the cold air that penetrates my bones, the smell of blood flowing, and strange voices whispering in my mind. I get up from my bed and walk to the kitchen. I make a cup of coffee. I think about the dream I just had. Could it be just an ordinary nightmare, or maybe it was a warning? I remembered the mystical stories about teak forests that I often heard from the old people in my village. After I finished my coffee, I went to my room. Melat sighed. My face was soft, but there was no one there. I was screaming. I was Pu Anduninya. I came and sided with this. I hope no one comes again. A few moments later, I heard a knocking sound again. This time, the knocking sound was K and more Mendez. I woke up from the sound and turned to the door again. I looked at the door, but still Matt Sion. I hesitated for a moment. I saw the figure of an old grandmother standing in the doorway. The grandmother was wearing a black kabaya and shaggy batik cloth. Her hair was long and white, covering part of her face. I remembered the dream I had. The old grandmother was a grandmother. What I saw in the magical village. I took a step back, but the grandmother kept coming closer. Don't be afraid, the grandmother said in a hoarse voice. I came to help you. I didn't believe the grandmother's words. I knew the grandmother was an evil spirit. I turned around and went to the room. I watched the bedroom door and hid under the bed. I heard the sound of the grandmother's feet approaching. I closed my eyes, hoping that the grandmother wouldn't find me. Suddenly, I felt a cold touch on my feet. I opened my eyes and saw the grandmother standing beside my bed. She smiled at me. You can't run away from me, Grandma said. That you are mine now. The grandma put out her hand and touched my face. I quenched my eyes with my mother. I suddenly woke up again, only this time the terrace was so tense. My fate was chasing. Cold sweat wet my forehead. I fumbled in my pocket and turned on my friend's danger, filling the room with a bit of a sad darkness. I sat on the edge of the place. Tried to calm down. My heart was still pounding like crazy. That's why I decided not to sleep anymore. I took my cell phone and looked at the clock. It was 3 a.m. too early to start AK, but I couldn't possibly close my eyes again. After me, it was terrible. I remembered what happened last week. What happened? Did I really die in that accident, or was it possible that I just disappeared? I cried. Ladybugs. I chopped it. I used it the next day like a flashlight, a penknife, and a bottle of drinking water. I also brought the amulet that my grandfather gave me. When he died, the amulet was said to be able to protect against disturbances from spirits. I thought about my car on the side of the road a few kilometers from where my truck was found. I didn't want to attract anyone's attention. Traveling about 8 hours, I arrived at the place where my truck was found. The truck was still there in a badly damaged condition. I approached the truck and checked it. There were no signs of life inside. I looked around for clues. My eyes fell on a white cloth that was caught on a tree branch. I took the cloth and opened it. Inside, I found a photo. The photo was a photo of me, but not the current photo of me. The photo was a photo of me when I was little, and I don't remember ever having that photo. I was stunned. I didn't know what to do. I felt like I was in the middle of a complicated puzzle. I have to find out the truth. I have to find out who I really am. I put the photo in my pocket. You continue your journey. I don't know where to go to man, but I yak I'm going to Manuk Jawan. The teak forest gets more gel with the sun scary. I continued walking following my instincts, which led me deeper into the heart of the forest. Suddenly I felt something strange. The air around me felt colder, and the rancid smell pierced my nose again. My heart was pounding. A bad feeling returned. I accelerated my steps, trying to ignore the feeling of fear that was getting stronger, but my steps. I stopped when I saw a dim light in the distance. The light came from a small hut that stood in the middle of the dead. I approached the hut carefully. The door of the hut opened slightly, revealing the dimly lit inside. I peeked in and saw the figure of an old grandmother sitting. In the rocking chair, the grandmother was exactly the same as the grandmother I saw in my dream. I was stunned. I couldn't believe what I saw. Was this real or was I just hallucinating? The grandmother turned towards me. Her wrinkled face looked scary in the dim light of the oil lamp. She smiled sarcastically, showing his teeth were black. "Finally you came to," he said in a hoarse voice. I took a step back, but the grandmother was already standing and walking towards me. I turned around and gave the Akua's brush. I just smacked it in the front. I didn't have time to stop. I jumped into the abyss hoping to survive. I fell into darkness. I felt my body slam on the ground. I was in pain, but I couldn't move. I felt like I was dying when I opened my eyes. I saw the grandmother standing in front of me. She smiled and then disappeared. I closed my eyes and surrendered with my faith. I woke up in the hospital. I saw Iskuk next to me. He was crying so hard. "Darling, you are awake," he said. "My wife." I asked what happened. My wife told me that I was found unconscious in the Jadal Sayre forest. I was taken to the hospital and treated for several days. I was silent. I can't say I don't remember what happened after I fell into the abyss. I only remember Yankee noodles. Was I really dead or alive? I'm sorry. I don't want to experience a terrible incident like that again. A few years later, my wife and I moved to another city, starting a new life away from the shadows of the past. I never hear anything about the teak forest anymore, but those nightmares still often haunt me.